afternoon, and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. As always, on the fourth Wednesday of the month, I'm joined by Mark LaBarr, conservation biologist for Audubon, Vermont. Great to see you again.
Always great to be here.
So today's another catch-up day for our viewers.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. Sometimes I get on the show and I get to talking, and we always try to line up some viewer mail at the end, and sometimes we don't get to it all. So I'm going to try to get to as many as I can today.
Okay, who's up first?
The first one is from Eugene Bradford of Ferrisburg, and this goes to show how sometimes things get put on the back burner. This is from back in January, and he asks, on 1/8/14, I had 3 pairs of bluebirds eating the little blueberries on the cedar tree off my back deck. Is this common to have bluebirds in January? And we've talked about this before. Bluebirds, robins, oftentimes are seen here in the wintertime. As long as there's a food source like those berries, those birds can stick around, so it's not as uncommon as one would think.
All right, very good. Well, here's a question from P.J. McMahon with 2 nice pictures from Dave Trono. It says, we live near the Richmond-Heinsberg town line. We're surrounded by woods. For many years, we've been lucky to have hummingbirds nest in our trees and feed at the feeders. This year, we have at least 5 females and 2 males currently feeding. We have 3 feeders. We fill them every 12 to 24 hours. They spend most of the day flying back and forth to the feeders, and they don't seem to be foraging for any nectar. Are we spoiling them too much?
An interesting question, and I want to say those are 2 great shots from Dave Trono, who sent those in. You know, this is a question that comes up, and it comes up oftentimes in the fall, right, as migration is starting, when people start wondering whether leaving their feeders up is actually keeping the hummingbirds from migrating. And the answer to that is no. By having your feeders up, you might be spoiling them to some extent because they have a regular source of food that they can come to, but they certainly can switch back to their normal, natural nectar sources once that, that food source is taken away from them and on migration. So if anything, sometimes those feeders in the fall can help the birds expend less energy looking for food and really build up the fuel that they need for migration. So spoiling them a little bit, but that's okay.
All right, very good. Well, the next question is from Euless and Doris Gaudette from Alberg Springs, another in the hummingbird realm. We try to watch your bird segment when we think of it each month while we are in Vermont. A couple questions and pictures to send you. We have a nest of cardinals on our front porch. The little ones at the present on front porch with little ones at the present time. Is it normal for the male to feed and care for the young? Also, isn't it late in the year for young ones? And also attached is a picture of hummingbird babies. I took numerous pictures, but not being good with the camera, this is the only one that came out okay. How long do they stay in the nest, and will they be strong enough for the trip south later this year? We feed them all summer long, and in the spring they come to our window to say, here we are again, where's the food? We have used about 10 pounds of sugar so far this year.
Yeah, so again, you've got that nest, it's about the size of a walnut. To answer the first question, many birds, cardinals included, both parents feed the birds, but this is a really tiny nest. Those birds are in there for, up to, somewhere between 10, 15 days. And she had sent this picture in. It was late in the season. They have plenty of time to fledge and, again, get enough energy to migrate south. But awesome to be able to find.
I know, I don't think I've ever seen a nest.
Yeah, and they are difficult because they are so small. So lucky for them to have one so close to where they are.
Excellent.
And I think this next one is for me, and this one is from Jackie Bissett in Ticonderoga, and it was sent through across the fence. Jean said, she said, attaches a bird photo, request for identification from a viewer. I'm curious myself. So that's the ATF staff. And it says, hi, my name is Jackie. We had this little bird stop and visit my small petunia hanging plant last evening. Never seen this type here in Ticonderoga. Could you help us learn more about it? Thanks. This is actually a hummingbird moth. And it's a moth that looks extremely similar to a bird, acts like a bird, acts like a hummingbird. And so, basically utilizing the same food sources that a hummingbird would be. So not a little bird, but something that obviously is taking advantage of what looks like a very nice garden.
All right. Another hummingbird question from Catherine Swenson. I have an annual problem with wasps at the hummingbird feeders. What I've done so far is to put out bright yellow plastic mats with little clear plastic dishes containing the hummingbird liquid a little ways away from the bird feeders. They do draw the wasps away for the most part, but they're still a little pesky at the feeders. Is there anything I can do?
That's a tough one. You know, wasps and ants, we had talked a little bit about ants coming to feeders. You're putting a food source out there, you know, sugar, a highly concentrated form of energy for things, and so wasps and ants are going to take advantage of it. Sometimes, as far as the ants are concerned, there's a little cup on the top, creates a little moat that keeps the ants from going down, but the wasps, of course, can fly. It sounds like that's a pretty good tactic by trying to provide them with another food source that might be a little bit more accessible. But they're not going to really bother the hummingbirds, and probably if you don't bother the wasps, they won't bother you. There's probably a nest close by. So not much that you can do other than, again, try, you know, continue to do what she did with that saucer of sweet stuff to the side.
Yeah, very good.
And let's see, I think here's a letter from my friend Kurt Peterson down in Heartland. He said, naturalist Mary Holland did us a favor and watered our garden this morning and got these pictures of chickadees nesting inside one of the posts. I thought they were worth forwarding. Great shots. And they are. And chickadees, you know, take advantage of any kind of cavity that they'll nest in. So this is nice that, you know, there must be enough rot in the middle of that they could excavate and create a little hole. So
very cute.
Nice to have those around.
Okay, this question is from Liz Pecor of Moncton. Hi, Mark, or whoever sees this. I think I have a young black-crowned night heron in my backyard. Its markings look like the picture in my North American wildlife books. How common are they? According to the book, they migrate here to breed. Never saw one before. I'm excited.
So I went back and forth with Liz on this one. She lives pretty close to Moncton Pond, and black-crowned night herons usually nest out on the lake, on Lake Champlain.
Right.
And so I was a little curious, and after going back and forth, I think we came to the conclusion that she probably had an American bittern in her yard. They nest at, or I've seen them at Moncton Pond, and so that would be more the likely. The immature black-crowned night heron looks a lot like this. That bittern has that classic, this is the classic American bittern stance. It often stands in a reed bed or in cattails and looks just like that. Obviously, there were some things, maybe frogs, that were there in her yard that was drawing that bird in. So I think that's probably what she saw as opposed to a black-crowned night heron, an immature one of those. Let's see, in that same line, there was an image that came in from Tim Daly, and this image is of another heron. He was curious what this heron is, and this is a green heron. This is a heron that folks that have ponds or along, you know, edges, even along Lake Champlain, it's a smaller heron than the American bittern, but one that is pretty common in Vermont. Often does that crouching down look, but can also extend itself just like the American bittern can. So there you go, a green heron. And this is a good example of how the American Ornithologists Union, that bird has gone from a green heron to a green-backed heron to a green heron, and so they changed the name around, but that's currently where it is.
All right, I have some pictures here from Christy Hersey, who writes, we've had snowbirds in the past. This year we had a surprise, so many we couldn't count them. So I sprinkled the food on a long line and we counted 53 before they flew away. They stayed till the robins came. And the bobolinks love our 25-acre field. The mowing was done late. We have at least 3+ couples. One male loves to come to the lilac bush and sing to me while I'm on the deck. No fear of me, no danger here.
Well, that's great, and it's great to have snow buntings, and it's great to have a bobolink that close. We've talked about bobolinks in the past. You know, they have that really R2D2 song that sounds like, you know, I kind of sound like a computer bird. They often display above a field, and it's great to hear that they're taking the time to delay the cut on their field after, you know, we usually suggest after July 15th, August 1st. That just allows the bobolinks to, nest, to get in there and get their young off. But it's great for her to have that bird. Obviously, it's chosen chosen that place right there near her porch as a place to present itself to the females and the other males, and it's great that she can has that opportunity to enjoy that bird so close.
A front row seat.
It is. And then here's a question from Ruby Beeman. She writes, "Hi Mark, I'm looking for information on kingfishers. I saw a bird the size of a young crow that I thought was a blue jay. It dived into or skimmed our pond and then flew onto a large rock by the edge of the grass. It was kind of blue-gray with a dark tuft on its head and a long, thick, tight bill. It sat for a while watching me. I wish that I had my camera or phone, but I did not. I only had binoculars. I checked my bird books, and that is the only thing that it compared to a kingfisher. I enjoy your notes on WCAX." And across the fence. And it sounds like that's what she saw, is the kingfisher. It's a great bird. It is one, you can see here, it is a piscivore, as we call it. And so it is a fish eater, so you often find these birds along rivers, over ponds. We have one that works our beaver pond at the Audubon at the center in Huntington, and they also work the river. They're cavity nesters, and so they nest in the banks. They'll dig out a burrow in the mud, a little round burrow, and they'll nest in there. And a really big head. I've actually handled and caught a couple of these, and compared to their body size, that bill and that head is pretty large. And it's funny when people ask about information, the best place. I often send them to the web, and if you were to Google kingfisher, belted kingfisher as this one is, it usually brings you right to one of the Cornell sites. That's usually at the top. And they're a great source of information on all sorts of birds. Their website is an easy one to navigate.
So if it looks familiar in your bird book, it's good to Google and get more images.
And it'll bring up images, and you can compare that. And you can also always give me a call at the center or write me, and I can help you identify or try to help you identify what the bird might be.
Okay, well here's a picture from Cheryl Walker, and she writes, "Hope these help to determine they're slightly bigger than the crows, but not much. Tried to send the short video, but I'm not too computer savvy. It's too long, but I didn't know how to shorten it. We'll ask my husband for help." Cheryl.
I didn't get the video, but we did get the pictures. Cheryl had a whole bunch of images that she sent me. And again, this is another one where sending images or pictures in the mail helps me identify it. We came down to that this is probably a Cooper's hawk, an immature Cooper's hawk. These birds seem to be coming to their bird bath or their pond regularly. The images that she sent me, was probably a young group of youngsters that were coming down and using that as a place to keep themselves clean. And in looking at this one, the size, it being a little bit larger than a crow, the other one that this could be confused with would potentially be a sharp-shinned hawk, which is a little bit smaller. And so, again, this is one of those examples of, you can Google it or you can give me a call and we can try to help you figure out what you're seeing.
Excellent.
I have our last image and letter here is from Jean Grattan, who lives just down the road from me in Huntington, right on Main Road. She writes, "Hi Mark, I'm sending you a couple of pictures taken in our yard and my daughter's yard. The picture of the indigo bunting here is the buntings have been around a couple of weeks now, but what's the other bird on the feeder?" So I think I got this first picture. That is a bunting, and I don't have the picture of on the feeder, but I did respond to her. She said, "I believe it also on the same bird on the ground with the bunting." So probably some buntings that were visiting her feeder. And they're great, early successional habitats, bright blue, a great bird to have in your backyard. We have them at the Audubon Center. They can sing a little repetitively over the course of the summer or the field season, so they can be, in your ear a little bit, so to speak, but a great bird. And then the other picture is the larger brown bird in the picture is a bird it's a brown thrasher, which she correctly identifies. And she was wondering, she again wanted to see whether she was right in her guesses. Brown thrasher is again another kind of early successional. We call it a shrubland bird. You often see it in your lilacs and things of that nature, or in the Champlain Valley. You find it in those overgrown fields. So nice to see one of those in Huntington as well. I usually see them a little bit more to the west of us.
Terrific. A nice variety.
It was, and we caught up on some of our images. It's great. People have said to me, I love hearing and having you respond to the viewer images. So, and the questions that people send in. So keep sending them, and I'll work my darndest to keep trying to respond to you.
Well, if you do have a bird-related question, you can pass it along to Mark. You can write to him at Audubon, Vermont, 255 Sherman Hollow Road in Huntington. The zip code is 05462. You can also email your question to Mark. His email address is mlabarr@audubon.org. And send Mark your questions, and he'll try to find some answers on an upcoming edition of Bird Notes. Thanks for joining us.
You're very welcome.
That's our program for today. I'm Judy Simpson. We'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.